Start
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are, or good evening, depending on where you are. This is Michael Gallagher. I'm the president and the founder of the Stevie Awards, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for this webinar entitled How to Enter the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service. This should take just about 45 minutes or so, and we are recording it, so if you need to review it again or share it with colleagues, we'll have a link to the recording posted on the online entry kit for the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service tomorrow. I'm joined this afternoon by my colleague Ann White. Say hello, Ann.
Yes, hi everybody and welcome.
Ann, among other things, edits our weekly email newsletter and also oversees much of the judging process. I'm going to quickly run down what we're going to be talking about today. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the Stevie Awards. Some of you have probably entered other of our awards programs, and some of you the Stevie Awards are fairly new to. So we'll just talk very briefly about the history of the Stevie Awards. We'll talk about the schedule for the 2011 Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service, and these are the 2011 awards we're going to be talking about, even though the entry process is rolling out this fall. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about how to review and select categories. That's a very important part of the process. And then once you select your categories, how to prepare and submit your entries, how the judging process works, some best practices that we recommend you follow based on our 9 years of doing this and observing some of the best practices that other entrants have followed in submitting the best entries they possibly could. And then we'll answer some of your questions. In your GoToWebinar control panel, you should see a chat feature, or a questions feature rather, and if you at any point during this webinar you'd like to pose a question to us that you'd like us to answer at the end of this presentation, by all means post your question there and Ann will monitor them and pose them to me at the end of the process. If for some reason we don't address your question today, or a question comes to you tonight or tomorrow, by all means send us that question. You can email it to info@stevieawards.com. We're pretty prompt about responding to queries. And we do welcome and we encourage questions. We're astonished every year by how few people really ask us questions and or for advice on selecting categories, and we welcome that. It doesn't affect the results of the judging process at all. We want to see you do well no matter who you are. We treat all entrants equally. And with that, we'll begin. The Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service is one of 4 Stevie Awards competitions, and we'll click on this link and I'll take you to the Stevie Awards index page. There are 4 competitions. 3 of them are fully international, meaning any organization anywhere in the world can participate. The only exception is the oldest of the Stevie Awards programs, and the largest, by the way, which is the American Business Awards, which is going into its 9th year. That's open to all organizations worldwide. But the other 3, including the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service, are open to all organizations worldwide with varying international scope. The International Business Awards, which just finished up its 8th annual awards program in Istanbul, Turkey last week, gets entries from organizations in over 40 countries. The Stevie Awards for Women in Business, which recognizes women executives, women entrepreneurs, and the organizations they run, typically gets entries from anywhere from 10 to 20 nations. The Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service, the program we're talking about today, is the youngest Stevie Awards program. It's in its 5th year. While that's fully international, we typically get entries in that program from fewer than from 10 organizations. So that's one of our missions this year, is to increase the international scope of that program. But we get most of the entries are from the U.S., but we do get quite a bit from the U.K., from Canada, from Australia and South Africa, English-speaking nations. But we do want to encourage more entries in this program from organizations in other countries. Okay, we talked about the 4 programs. Oops, I need to go back. As I mentioned, the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service are now in their 5th year. It's the youngest Stevie Awards program. The Stevie Award trophy is made by the same company that makes the Oscar, the Emmy, and other major awards. The company is called R.S. Owens. They're in Chicago. And the Stevie Award trophy is very Oscar-like. It weighs just about what the Oscar weighs, which is about 8 pounds. It's taller than Oscar with the crystal triangle atop. It's about 16 inches high. It is a very impressive trophy. If you've ever talked to anyone who's won one, they'll tell you that when they win a Stevie Award, they actually feel like they've won an award. It's a very impressive trophy. The awards program in general is very web-centric, meaning that we do most of our entry solicitation online. Most organizations submit their entries online. You can get the entry kit online by filling out a form on the website, which I'll show you in a second. And most of the judging takes place online, since what you'll be submitting if you decide to enter is a case study about your nominee. That typically gets submitted online, and even if you submit it by mail or by fax, we're still going to put it into the same online system. Judges are around the world, and they can judge online at their convenience anytime, day or night during the judging window. And we'll talk about the judging process in detail, as well as the entry process in detail. This is the schedule for the 2011 Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service. We are 10 days out now from the early bird entry deadline. I believe this is the first year we've had an early bird deadline for this particular program. The entry fees are discounted a little bit if you submit your entry before October 16th. I believe it's discounted by $25 per entry. We'll talk about the entry fees in a moment. If for some reason you can't get your entries in by before October 16th, the following deadline is November 12th. That's a Friday. Entry fees will increase by $25 after October 15th. And if for some reason you can't get your entry in before November 13th, we will continue to take entries right through the end of the year. It's just that after November 12th, we'll add a $35 late fee to the entry fee. But apart from the late fee, late entries are not penalized in any way in the judging. When judges look at entries, they have no idea when an entry was submitted. So they don't know whether it was submitted in October or December. So you're not penalized other than the late fee for submitting in late November or December. We'll actually begin the preliminary judging, which determines the finalists right after the November 12th deadline. And that preliminary judging will go just about 2 months, until just about January 10th or so. That will determine the finalists, and we'll actually notify finalists on January 12th. That's Tuesday. Typically, we notify finalists a day or two before we make public announcements of finalists. That way you have a heads up if you are a finalist, that you are going to be announced as a finalist the following day, and you have an opportunity, if you choose to do it, to prepare and put out your own press release announcing that you're a finalist. On January 13th, we'll publicly announce the finalists. They'll be listed on the website, and we'll also put out a press release announcing the finalists. Generally, the announcement of finalists is about a month in advance of the awards banquet, which next year will be on Monday, February 21st, back at the Eden Rock Renaissance Hotel in Miami Beach. That's where we had this year's event. It was very successful. People loved it there, so we're going back. That is President's Day, and people have asked, well, why would you have the event on President's Day on a holiday? Typically, we have the events on Monday anyway, so that you have the option, if you choose to do that, to come into the host city and spend the weekend there and make a 3-day weekend out of it. And since that Monday is a holiday, you do have an opportunity to make a real 3-day weekend out of it if you choose to do that. But then again, if you don't have to come to the awards ceremony, if you're a finalist, it is an option. Attendance does not influence the final results. Final results are determined weeks in advance of the event. So that's this year's schedule, which you can also find on the website. As I mentioned, the awards banquet will be back in Miami Beach this year. We expect it to be attended by about 200 to 250 executives. This year in Miami Beach was about 210. It was very successful. Most of our events are broadcast on the radio by the Business Talk Radio Network. This particular event will be recorded and broadcast later in the week, I would guess, We don't have it scheduled yet, but it would probably be Thursday the 24th in the evening, probably 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And that broadcast is typically listened to by anywhere from 800,000 to 1.2 million listeners around the country. And as I mentioned, attendance is not required to win. And with this link, I'll just take you to some of the photographs from last year's banquet. If you go on the summary page about last year's results, you'll find a link to these photographs. We always videotape and all of the awards presentations, and we make the video clips of the photographs freely available on the website. So if you are an honoree and you come to the event and you're fortunate enough to be on stage to receive your award, you'll have photographs and video clips to help commemorate that, to help you publicize that. Eligibility for the 2011 Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service, again, is open to all organizations and individuals worldwide. It doesn't matter what nation you're in. It doesn't matter what type of organization you work for, public or private, large or small, for-profit or non-profit. It doesn't matter. As long as you have an entry that would fit into one of the categories we have, you're welcome to enter. This year's, or the 2011 awards, will recognize achievements since the beginning of July 2009. That means that when you write your entry, you can talk about accomplishments from before that time, but they really should be in terms of background. You really want to focus on the nominee's achievements since the beginning of July 2009. When I use the word nominee in this presentation, it really depends on the category. A nominee can be an individual, it can be a team, it can be a department, or it can be an entire organization, or this year it can actually be a product as well, which we'll talk about in a second. So depending on the category and what it is you're nominating, focus on achievements since the beginning of July 2009. The only exception is we have two Lifetime Achievement Award categories, one in the sales arena and one in the customer service arena. And for those particular categories, the time frame doesn't matter. You can focus on the lifetime of achievements in those particular categories. So let's talk about how to enter. And I have to imagine that most of you have done this first step already, which is to request and get the online entry kit. And I'll briefly take you to the website and show you where you do that. This is the home page for the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service. And on the right-hand side, you can see a short form for requesting an entry kit. If you fill out this form, you'll automatically be emailed, or instantaneously be emailed, the online entry kit. There's a longer version of the form, which you can see here. And interestingly, more people fill out the longer form than the shorter form. I don't know why that is, but they do. So if you fill out that form, you'll get a link to the online entry kit by email instantaneously. Getting the entry kit is not a hard requirement. Many people review the website, look at the list of past winners, and read the past winning entries on the website, and you get a pretty good sense of what the requirements are for that. But the web page does summarize the entry kit does summarize in one web page all of the requirements and all of the background information that we think is most relevant on one page. So even if you think you have a pretty good idea on how to prepare and submit entries, you should get the entry kit anyway. If for no other reason, that'll put you on a reminder list, and you'll get some reminder emails from us about the entry deadlines, which most people find to be useful because we know you're busy, and we don't want to. You don't, and we don't want to have the entry deadline slip your mind because you're busy with other things. So we will remind you about the deadline. I mentioned the entry kit. Let's take a look at that. Now, if you've tried to access the entry kit today, you may have had some problems. Some of the web pages on our site, including this one, are hosted by Yahoo, and Yahoo is having some problems today. But since the page came up instantaneously, I guess that's been solved. But this is what the entry kit looks like. The resources section pretty much collects important links to most relevant information on the website. And you can see here under the section how to prepare and submit your entries, there are links to 3 PDF documents, and you can only get these documents through this entry kit. The first being the most important, that is instructions for submitting entries. It lists all the categories and it lists the requirements for those categories, but we're going to talk in general about those things in a moment here. There is an entry cover sheet, which you only need to use if you're going to submit your entries by mail or fax, and 99% of the entries that we get are submitted online, and we very much encourage you to submit your entries online. You don't need the entry cover sheet for that. When you submit your entries online, the basic information about your company that you provide provides the same information that's on the entry cover sheet. And then there's a summary of the rules and regulations of the competition. So take a look at the entry kit if you haven't done that already. This slide summarizes the essential requirements of submitting entries to the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service. And they're actually much simpler in this competition than they are in our other three, because the other three tend to have a variety of different types of categories, and the requirements for those types differ a bit. But the requirements are universal across all the categories in the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service. And these are the basic requirements. An essay or a case study of up to 500 words, it doesn't have to be 500 words, but up to 500 words, describing the nominee's accomplishments since the beginning of July 2009. Now, very often people will call and email us and say, well, I've written my essay, it's 510 words. Is it going to get kicked out? The answer is no. There is no technical limitation when you submit your entry online on the number of words in that essay. So if you do go over 500 words, it's not going to get kicked out. But do know that it's not unprecedented that judges with too much time on their hands will actually count the words in an essay because it looks too long and deduct points because it's too long. So I would recommend that if you're going to go over 500 words, don't go over 530. If you really need to include more text than that, a workaround is to take that extra text, put it in a PDF document or put it on a web page, and include it as one of the links. You can see number 2 there is the second requirement, and actually this one is not a requirement, it's optional, but highly recommended. You can provide links to online supporting materials for your entry. And those supporting materials can be links to video clips, they can be links to press releases, news stories, product reviews, what have you. If your entry is much more than 530 words, scrape it out, put it in a supporting document, and at the end of your essay, say the rest, to be continued in the first supporting document. Very often people will call us and say, well, I have supporting materials, but they're not online. They're in PDFs or they're Word documents, but we can't host them. We can host them for you, but this is what you need to do. You need to submit your entries online first, and then send us an email to info@stevieawards.com and attach your attachments to that email. Tell us which entry or entries they go with. The file names can contain only letters, numbers, hyphens, and periods, no other characters, and no spaces. If you follow those instructions, we will put those supporting materials up on our server for you and provide a link to them in your online entry. But if you don't follow those instructions, we're going to kick them back to you. The third part of the requirement, and this is a requirement for all entries, is a biography of up to 100 words of either the nominee or the leader of the nominated team or department. So obviously if you're nominating an individual for Customer Service Leader of the Year or Sales Representative of the Year, for example, you can provide a very brief biography of that nominee. However, if you're nominating a team category, such as Contact Center of the Year or National Sales Team of the Year, you're going to provide a brief biography of the leader of that team. Similarly, you'll provide a leader of a nominated department. We have some new categories this year for products and services related to customer service and sales. If you're going to enter one of those categories, you would provide a brief biography of the leader of the team that developed that new product or service. And we'll talk about that in a moment when we talk about the new categories. But those are the general requirements for all the categories in the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service. So there are 5 types of categories. We'll talk about each of them briefly. There are individual categories for nominating individual people. There are team categories. There are department categories, and we'll talk about the difference between a team and a department because that can be confusing for some people. There are special achievement categories, and new this year, there are 2 new groups of categories this year. There's a new group of categories for products and services that are used by sales and customer service or call center professionals. And there's several solution provider categories for providers of solutions to help sales and customer service professionals. We'll look at all of these in detail. There are 11 individual categories for sales, and there are 6 individual categories for contact center and customer service professionals. And I'll follow this link to the list of categories on the website. You'll also find a link to this page in the online entry kit. And this one page lists all of the categories and all of the requirements for all of the categories in the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service. And here on your screen now you see the 11 individual sales categories. And we'll scroll down a bit and you'll see the, I think I passed, there they are, the 6 individual categories for customer service and contact center professionals. The team categories, in our vernacular, teams are defined as subsets of entire departments that are focused on a particular client, particular industry, geographies, etc. So a particular sales team, our customer service team, or a particular contact center that serves a particular geography, all of those would we would describe as teams. We have 17 categories for sales and 18 categories for contact centers and customer service organizations. And let's go back and look at those very briefly. Here are the sales team categories. There are categories like a national sales team of the year, government sales team of the year, sales support team of the year, for example. And then on the customer service and contact center team categories, this is where you would actually see the contact center of the year categories, and we have 2 of them. One for contact centers with up to 100 seats, one for centers with over 100 seats, and you can see the other ones there, including customer service management team of the year, frontline customer service team of the year, and so on. Sometimes people ask, well, where can I find fuller descriptions of these categories? The place where we have those is you'll see them after you register to submit your entries online. And in a little bit I'll take you into that process and show you where you can do that, where you can see those fuller descriptions. Department categories, and a department as opposed to a team, represents everyone who works in your sales, contact center, or customer service operation, regardless of their function. So your customer service department is defined by everyone who works in customer service in your entire organization, no matter where they are, no matter what they do. And we have 13 department categories for sales and 8 department categories for contact centers and customer service, and they are generally delineated by industry. So here are the sales department categories. There's one new one this year for healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and related industries. You can see those. If your industry is not one of the ones that are listed here, the last one is for all other industries. It's kind of a catch-all if we don't have a category for a particular industry. And here are the customer service department categories, and you can see here as well we have a new category this year for healthcare, pharmaceutical, and related industry departments. One of the benefits of submitting nominations in the customer service department of the year categories is that if your nomination is selected as a finalist, it will automatically be included in voting for the People's Choice Stevie Awards for favorite customer service. And this is something we started last year and had over 100,000 votes in the first go-round. Voting in the People's Choice Stevie Awards for favorite customer service will open in mid-January and close in mid-February. And if you are a finalist in that category, we'll provide you with tools so you can encourage your customers and other constituents to vote for you in the People's Choice Stevie Awards for favorite customer service. So in essence, if you are a finalist in any of the customer service department of the year categories, you have an opportunity to win 2 awards. You have an opportunity to win a Stevie Award as voted by your peers in the regular category, and you also have an opportunity to win a People's Choice Stevie Award as voted by your customers. And that's proved to be very popular. Again, we had over 100,000 votes, and we will provide you with tools so that you can encourage your customers to vote for you, and it will be a very simple process for them to vote for you. We also have a number of achievement categories that recognize functional or special achievements. There are 8 for sales and 3 for contact centers and customer service, and we'll look at those very briefly. Here are the sales achievement categories. There are categories like CRM implementation and user adoption program of the year, sales process of the year, sales training or coaching program of the year, and sales meeting of the year, among others. In customer service, we only have 3, but they are very popular ones. E-commerce customer service award, best use of technology in customer service, and the award for innovation in customer service are those 3. I mentioned earlier that we have 2 new groups of categories this year. These are the new product and service categories, and the numbers that you see before these category names are simply the category numbers. They correspond to the numbers on this page. So there are essentially 6 different types of products, and for each of those types there are 2 breakouts, one for brand new products and one for a new version of a product. So if you have a collaboration solution that's been around since 2005 and a new version of that has come out since July 1, 2009, you can nominate that new version under Category 91, Collaboration Solution, New Version. So those are the new product categories. We instituted those because new product and service categories in our other programs, particularly the American Business Awards and the International Business Awards, are very popular, but we did not have specific categories that are focused on sales and customer service solutions in those programs, so we've introduced them here. We hope you take a look at them. And finally, there's one other group of new categories this year, and again, these are the categories numbers that precede the titles, and they're specifically for consultants that provide solutions for sales and contact center and customer service operations, and I suspect that those categories will be very popular as well, so take a look at those. I'm sure top of your mind is, okay, we want to enter these awards. What does it cost? The Stevie Awards are primarily funded by the entry fees that entrants pay. They fund our year-round operations. I just got a pop-up here that there was a problem with the audio. I hope you can hear me. Ann, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
Just
all right.
keep that face pressed to the computer.
All right. Well, hopefully everyone else can hear me well. These are the entry fees. They're pretty modest. It's $200 per entry in the categories that recognize the achievements of individuals, and sort of individual people. And it's $375 per entry in any of the categories that recognize the achievements of entire organizations, teams, and departments, as well as the new product and service categories. So it's pretty simple to figure out what those are. If you submit your entry before October 16th, those fees are discounted by $25. So if you submit your entry before the 16th, it's $175 to nominate an individual and $350 to nominate a team or department or organization. After November 12th, I mentioned earlier, we'll institute a late fee of $35 per entry per category, and we'll continue accepting entries through the end of the year. A separate fee is required for each category in which an entry is submitted. So if you decide you want to submit 3 entries, you'll have to pay an entry fee for each of those entries depending on the category. Very often we're asked, can I submit the same entry to multiple categories? And the answer is yes, you can do that if appropriate. If you want to nominate one of your sales teams, for example, in multiple of the sales categories, as long as the entry is appropriate, you can do that. You can also probably modify a base entry with minor tweaks and submit that into multiple entries. But that's a shortcut if you want to sort of spread entries around to multiple categories to increase your risks of winning or chances of winning. That's one way to do that. This is a very important step, and we'll spend a little time on this. How to choose categories. Very often people will contact us and say, we're interested in in your entering your awards program. We see you have a lot of categories. We're having trouble figuring out which categories to enter. Can you help us? And we would ask you two questions if you have that question for us. First is, what do you want to be recognized for? If you can spell out for us the achievements that your entire organization or some part of your organization wants to be recognized for, we can point you towards the appropriate categories for that type of recognition. A second question, and this is an important one, is do you want to win a Stevie in any category or only in specific categories? Very often people will say, I really don't care which category I win in. We just want to win one of these lovely trophies. Can you help us? Can you point us to our category where we might have the best chances to do that? And we're very happy to do that. Other people will say, you know, my global VP of sales has had a terrific year. We want to win an award for her. That's the only category we want to enter. And our response is that's fine. You know, depending on the category, you may have a lot of competition there. It might be wiser to kind of broaden your horizon and think about options, but very often people will say we only want to enter that category, and that's fine too. So think about, you know, what's important to you. Do you want to win one in any category or only particular categories? Like everything else in life, the 80-20 rule applies to entries to not only the Stevie Awards for sales and customer service, but to all of the Stevie Awards competitions. And that is that 80% of the entries are typically submitted to 20% of the categories. So some of the categories are very popular, and other categories are not so popular. And what you see on the screen are the 5 categories that have gotten the most entries over the past 2 years. A sales training or coaching program of the year is, I would say, by far the most popular category that gets a lot of entries. Best use of technology and customer service, that was one of those customer service achievement categories, gets a lot of entries, as does the next one, Award for Innovation in Customer Service. Customer Service Leader of the Year and Sales Representative of the Year are the other 2 categories that round out the top 5. If you really wanted to enter one of these 5 categories, I would not dissuade you from doing that. If you have a really good entry, by all means enter these categories. Just understand that you will have company in these categories. If you were to say to us, you know, we don't care which category we're winning, we just want to win one of these trophies, can you steer us towards categories where we might have less competition? We're very happy to do that. If you email us or call us and say, you know, we want to win some awards for our sales operation, you know, the economy's in a rough shape, but despite that, our sales group has done a terrific job this year. We want to get some recognition for them. We'll help you steer you towards the sales categories where we think you might have the best chance of winning based on, you know, the history of the number of entries that are submitted to those categories. So again, as I said earlier, it can only help you to ask us for our help. So don't hold back. It doesn't hinder your chances with the judges at all. We treat all entrants the same. All right, so we mentioned earlier that the first step to submitting entries is to get the entry kit and to review the entry kit and understand what the category options are and how to write an entry. The next step is to submit, is to actually register on the website to submit your entries. I'm going to do
That people can always ask us about.
That's right. That's right. Again, we're here to help. Now let's talk a little bit about the judging process, how the judging process works. There are 2 stages. The first, which will run from mid-November until mid-January, the preliminary phase, determines the finalists that are eligible to be included in final judging. And every year we typically have 75 to 100 volunteers that participate in preliminary judging. And anyone can apply to be a preliminary judge. And here you see the application form in the judges section of the website. If we accept your application to be a judge, we will assign you categories based on your experience. So if you're a sales executive, we'll obviously assign you the sales categories, or some of the sales categories. And when you log into the online judging system, which I'll do in a second, I know that login works, we'll show you exactly how that works. So we can assign categories to you, and you would only see entries in those categories. So if you'd like to volunteer to be a judge, being an entrant does not preclude you from being a judge. We have the ability to assign categories, only the categories to you that you are not also an entrant in, so you're welcome to judge other categories. You can't judge categories in which your organization has entries. I mentioned the preliminary judging goes from November into January. All of it will take place online. The average scores determine the finalists, and all active judges are acknowledged on both the website and in the awards dinner program. And here, for example, is the list of people who participated in preliminary judging last year. So they're in the awards section of the website under judges. Final judging will start right after finalists are announced and notified in mid-January. Final judges are invited. Traditionally, we have invited the prior year's Stevie Award winners to be among the judges, and we do that every year, and we invite some other selected people to be on the final judging panel. Those invitations will be going out shortly to be on the 2011 final judging panel. That will take place in the latter part of January. And with that, I'm going to take you into the judging system and show you how that works. Oh, I'm going to click on the judges login. Ah, it worked. Okay. So this is what a judge sees when they log into the online judging system. I set up a little account for myself and assigned a couple of entries to myself just for demonstration purposes. But it includes a welcome message with some notes on when judging has to be completed by and how the online judging system works. I can click this to actually see the scoring system. It's pretty simple, from 1 to 10, 10 being good and 1 being not so good, with some guidelines on how to review entries. Judges are required to provide a comment if they give an entry a score of 6 or lower, because very often if someone is not a finalist or not recognized, they want to know why, and we find it's helpful if we have some constructive comments from the judges to give back to them. Well, let's just click on one of these entries here very briefly to show you what a judge would see. So Silk Road Technology has submitted an entry in the Relationship Management Solution category. That's one of those new product and service categories. So let's click on that to see it. So here below is the text of their entry, so I could read this entry, and I would give it a score. If I thought it was in the wrong category, I could choose that and provide a comment. If I needed to recuse myself from scoring it because I had some undisclosed relationship with Silk Road or the agency that was submitting the entry, Beck Media, I could choose that, or I could give it a score, and if I wanted to, I could also give it a comment here in the comment box. You know, it could be a negative, it could be a constructive negative comment, or it could be a constructive comment, however. Once I do that, I can click the button to see the next nomination or go back to the judging panel, or in this case, I'm going to cancel it because I am not a real judge. So that's a very brief look at the online judging system. Did I skip a slide? No, I didn't. We'll briefly talk about some best practices that we've observed over the past 9 years. The first thing we recommend you do is to read the winning entries from last year and prior years. They're almost all published on the website. So we'll click on this link, and I'll take it to the list of honorees from last year's Stevie Awards for sales and customer service. It's in the, if you go in the awards section and then click on honorees, this page will come up. And as we scroll down the page, you'll see that the titles of Stevie Award winning entries are highlighted. If you click on any of those, let's click on this one for AT&T Business Direct, the full text of the winning entry comes up. So you have some models here on which to base your entries, because these are entries that last year judges gave very high scores to. We recommend that you read them, especially in the categories that you're thinking about entering this year, and sort of model them on the tone and structure of these entries. Again, these have been proven to be judge pleasers. Very often, people will call us and say, "I want to enter the awards, but it's very important that the information on our entries be kept confidential. Until the results are determined, the only people who see these entries are our staff and the judges who have to log into an online judging system. If you were to be a Stevie Award winner, we would want to publish your entry like this on the website, but we would first give you the opportunity to redact any non-public information from the entry. So as you read through these winning entries, in many of them you'll see sections where it says this section redacted. So you will have the opportunity to purge any non-public or confidential information from your winning entry before it's published. So that is the number one thing, excuse me, that we recommend that all potential entrants do, which is read past Stevie Award winning entries. The second thing, this is probably the fourth time I've said this, but it's don't refrain from asking questions. Either call us or email us with questions about categories you're thinking of entering, and what do we think of those categories relative to the story you want to tell. By all means, ask for our help. It can only help your chances. By the nature of our entry requirements, you're required to be a storyteller when you submit your entry. You're basically writing a case study about the achievements of your nominee, and the more compelling you tell that story, the more likely it is that the judges are going to give your entry a good score. Judges are just people, and all people respond to stories well told. If you're not a good writer, get some help. But very often, there are really two types of entries. There are those with a compelling narrative, and there are those where the achievements of the nominee are so spectacular that they can literally be told in bullet form. So in those cases, the storytelling isn't so great, but the achievements are so spectacular that they can be told in bullet form, and very often those types of entries win. So either way, whatever is going to suit your story, that's the format you should follow. Sometimes people call us or email us in a panic. I've been writing my entry in your online form, and my computer bugged out, and it's not saved. We would always advise you to write your entries offline first. Then when you go into our online system to register and submit your entries, you're basically just copying and pasting your already prepared entry into the online form. If you've done that, it's going to take you 2 or 3 minutes to submit your entries, and you won't possibly lose your entry because of some online glitch. I mentioned earlier that it's possible, it's not required, but you have the option to submit entries to multiple categories, whether they're different entries or the same entry in multiple categories. Again, it can only help your chances to do that. 20% of the categories get 80% of the entries, so if you want to submit an entry in a category that's, say one of those top 5 that I mentioned earlier, you might increase your chances of winning to submit that same entry or a different entry in a different category that's not quite so popular. And if you contact us, we'll help you figure out which of those categories are. Be sure that when you register on the website to submit your entries, you choose your correct industry and organization size. Very often in categories where we have a lot of entries and a lot of finalists, we will break up those categories into multiple categories that aren't already specified by industry and give multiple awards based on industry and organization size. So make sure that you select those things correctly from the pull-down menus so that we have your organization correctly classified in the event that we do that. And finally, I recommend that you keep up to date with what's going on. We do have a weekly email newsletter, which we tend not to, we try real hard not to make it just blather about us. We publish a lot of profiles of recent Stevie Award winners and profiles of judges and others, and we try to make it an interesting read every week. It's got about 20,000 subscribers now. And we publish to our Twitter feed once or twice a week with information about what's happening around the Stevie Awards. We recommend that you follow us there too. Finally, very briefly, sponsorships are available. If you go on the sponsors page on the website, you'll get some information about that. There are a number of benefits to being a sponsor. Among them, you get to submit an unlimited number of entries without having to pay entry fees. You get advertising on the website, advertising in the awards dinner program. You get a full table at the awards dinner, and so on. So if that's something you might be interested in, take a look at that. We do encourage you to volunteer to be a judge. Again, you can be a judge and an entrant. They're not mutually exclusive. We do have the ability to assign to you as a judge only categories that you're not an entrant in. And with that, I see that it's just about 1:48, so I'm a little bit over where I said we were going to go. And with that, why don't we open it up to questions? Anne, have you been reviewing the questions?
Yep.
Putting in?
Yep. One of the questions, actually, I think you just answered, was about small businesses and how often they get recognized. And I think you've just mentioned that, in the more competitive categories, you do break it down into the size of the business.
Well, one of the nice things about the Stevie Awards, in all of our Stevie Awards programs, it's not just big organizations. If you scroll down this list of honorees, you'll see that one, right after AT&T, let's go back to AT&T. We focused on AT&T. There's Royal Caribbean, which is a relatively large company. Sales Partnerships is not a large company. Bulldog Solutions is not a large company. It's a real mixture of small companies and large companies that are winning awards.
Okay.
And more important than the size of your organization is the size of your achievement relative to the size of your organization and how well you tell that story. Year after year, we see, here for example, Brad Pearl of United Camera won for Customer Service Leader of the Year. Not a large company, but had a great story to tell. Besting customer service executives who were finalists and deserving finalists from, in some cases, much larger organizations.
Okay, another question is a more specific question about the number of entries that you receive in those more popular categories, and how many you get in the less popular categories.
Well, in our system of judging, every nomination that deserves to be a finalist becomes a finalist, meaning every nomination that gets an average score of at least 7 out of 10 in the preliminary judging automatically becomes a finalist. Some other awards programs have a system where, say, only the top 4 or the top 5 nominees in a category become finalists. So if you look down the list of their finalists, they have the same number of finalists per category. We think that's unfair. Because of the 80-20 rule, where some categories get a lot of entries and some only get a few, limiting the number of finalists per category is a disservice to the category that gets 100 entries, and you're doing a big favor to the category that only gets 7 entries. So in our system, every nomination that deserves to be a finalist, regardless of category, becomes a finalist. Therefore, as you scroll down the list of honorees from last year, you'll get a sense of which categories are more popular than others by the number of finalists. Now, last year, I think about 33, 34, 35% of all entries that were submitted scored high enough to become finalists. And the percentage of entries that became finalists differs wildly per category. In some categories, it's much higher than that. In some, it's much lower than that. But in general, you'll get a sense of the number of entries in a category by the number of finalists. So if you see a category that only has 1 or 2 finalists, it's probably a category that does not get a lot of entries. If you see a category like Customer Service Leader of the Year that has 7 or 8 finalists, that's one that probably gets 70 or 80 entries.
Okay. Now I have 2 questions from the same guy. One was about websites. He wanted to know whether the website has any influence on the nominations when people submit. But
well, if by website he means supporting material, yes, supporting material is very important. Sometimes some entries are very well written and then only have 1 or 2 links. Other entries are just so written and don't provide a lot of information, but provide a lot of extraordinary supporting materials. If the supporting materials are online, the judges do look at them. If the only supporting link you're going to provide is a link to your general website, that's probably not very helpful in making your case, although it does provide useful background information about your organization to the judges. So do give some consideration. If you do have any press clippings or product reviews or press releases that you can point to, that can only help. Now, obviously, in some categories, it's going to be hard to come up with those things. If you're going to nominate one of your salespeople for Sales Representative of the Year, there's probably not a lot of press about that person. If they're out in the field and dogging it and getting the job done, they're probably not press hounds. But you probably do have some press about your organization. There may have been case studies done in some trade papers about your sales organization in general. That can only help. So it's understood that in certain categories, there's not going to be a lot of direct online supporting material about the nominee.
Okay, that same questioner also asked if you encourage essays or entries to be in a case study format.
Not necessarily. We encourage you to tell your story the best way that you can. If following a case study format is the best way that you can do that to best make your case, do that. Our requirements are open-ended for a reason. Every organization is different. Every organization seeks recognition for different reasons. Every organization has their own unique way of expressing their achievements, and the way that our requirements are structured permits you to do that, permits you to tell it the best way that you can. We decided that if we were going to have very strict entry requirements where we provided you with a series of 20 questions, for example, and you had to provide answers to those 20 questions, we felt we would be limiting the types of entries we would get, types of organizations that would be responding to the call for entries. So we've left it open-ended so that every organization can respond in their own way.
Okay. And another question was on the entry fees. What do the entry fees cover, and why is there a difference between teams or departments and individuals?
Well, we learned from experience that organizations are less likely to pay fees to nominate an individual rather than an entire organization or a team. So across all of our awards programs, I think with the exception of the women's awards, because the fee there is so low, we generally have lower fees and much lower fees for nominating individuals as opposed to teams or departments.
Well, I think that covers all the questions. There was one person who just said, "Good job, Michael." So despite the fact that you've got a slight sinus infection, I think you did a great job. But that's all the questions that we have.
Well, again, we'll stop now, but if you're still online, and there's a number of you who are, and you have other questions come up today or tomorrow or whenever, just email them to us at info@Stevie Awards. We're pretty responsive. We'll get back to you right away. And again, we treat everyone the same. It doesn't matter whether you're with a Fortune 10 organization or a small nonprofit in the middle of Nebraska. We're going to treat you the same way, and we're going to help you the best way we can to get the recognition you're looking for. So with that, I thank you for tuning in today. Thank you, Ann, for sitting in.
Thank you.
And you will find a link to the recording of this webinar in the online entry kit by tomorrow. So if you want to share it with your colleagues or if you want to review it again yourself, it'll be there. So thank you again, and have a good day, and best of luck in the competition.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.